special episode, Prices and Promotions on B2B Platforms. This topic is so broad that we decided, first of all, to record a special episode about it, and secondly, to show you one of our products, the Price and Promotion Engine, which is designed specifically to manage prices and promotions on B2B platforms. Why is this topic, let's say, so complicated that we decided to record a special episode about it along with a demo of the Price and Promotion Engine? Well, listen, many B2B companies have been operating in Poland since the 1990s because we're basically talking about a system change, and they started building their product, their price list, their discount structure based on many years of history. Many of these companies actually have business partners who have been working with them for many years. As a result, a lot of different types of commercial terms and prices tied to specific partners arise. And now, when companies actually decide to go through digital transformation, which, among other things, means implementing a B2B platform, one of the key elements is really the price, which has to appear on the product page, the product in the B2B platform. Now, it might seem like this is a simple matter, because you just need to display the price. However, this is something that has come up many times in our episodes here. Namely, ERP systems work a bit differently than B2B platforms. Because of that, it's not so easy. Why? Because notice that in reality, each of your clients, if we're speaking to you as companies that have B2B, first of all, has a price list. There might be just one price list, or there could be many, and then there are the commercial terms. And now, for as many companies as I know, that's how many different ways I've seen commercial terms set up. Because there isn't really any market standard that says commercial terms have to look this or that way. It's actually a process involving many steps, organizational decisions, negotiations, special cases, and all kinds of promotions, which all lead to what we call commercial terms. So, what exactly are commercial terms? Commercial terms are an element where, in fact, a customer who is assigned to a certain price list receives special prices, whether that's on a product, a category, a specific product, or maybe a percentage discount, right? And now, there are a lot of possible combinations. Another element that comes into play in all of this is, at the end of the day, actually promotions, which can be other catalog promotions, meaning a promotion that the customer always sees on the product page. Or it can be a cart promotion, which only happens when a few conditions are met. For example, there have to be 2 related products in the cart, and then there will be a special price or a free product. There can also be a cart promotion in the form of free shipping, right? Or there can be a promotion where, if you place an order with us for more than 1,000 zlotys, you get a 10% discount, or all kinds of promotions involving giving away freebies, either a specific one or one chosen from a list. Right, so, as you can see, there are a lot of these cases. And now, why do many B2B implementations fail from the pricing perspective? Well, the ERP system actually calculates prices at the moment the order is placed, meaning at the moment the order is entered into the system. At that point, prices are recalculated for each line item. The ERP system doesn't actually have a complete price database calculated for every product and every customer that would allow for any kind of integration. On the other hand, if we look at the product card, or more importantly, at the product list. Here we're also showing a demo of the ecommerce platform, which I encourage you to check out so you can see how the entire B2B platform is built. So notice that right now I'm logged into my account, Tomasz Rozeski, as a company, and I really need to see the final product prices that apply to me. So now, what needs to happen here? Take a look. We're on a view that currently has about 13 products, but in reality, this view could have 100 or even 200 products. And for each product, a price needs to be returned, which means that, in reality, if we told ourselves that this integration is simple, like companies often say, we'll just take the prices from the ERP. It's actually not that simple at all. Why? Because for each of these products, like green gel polish, or red gel polish, or this blue gel polish, we might have a special price. And now, the B2B platform, when generating, for example, a product list or displaying search results, really needs to accurately get the current prices for the products that are clearly visible here. It needs to get the final price for the customer, because if it doesn't get it, then what will happen? In reality, our clients won't use the B2B platform, because they'll know that, in fact, we have better prices than the sales representative. Of course, you could answer this question in another way. Let's create a special price list for the B2B platform, which will, for example, implement some new pricing strategy, right? And we'll try to solve it this way, because it's also possible to fully manage prices within the B2B platform. This creates a discrepancy, meaning at any moment, a company might have two pricing policies. These can affect profitability. So, few companies will decide to just go ahead and, as part of implementation, completely overturn all their price lists at once. Although, we do know of such cases. This can also be related to simplifying a discount policy. But on the other hand, this can also lead to certain absurd situations, where in one channel or another, a given product is cheaper for the same customer we have in our database, which in turn can cause certain distortions during audits or controlling. Therefore, the problem is actually real and serious. And now, of course, if a company has a very simple case, namely, we have a wholesale price list and all we do is assign customers to a given price list. The matter is simple. Potentially, we don't need any additional tools. However, when in reality each of these products has a special price, mainly resulting from commercial terms, then at that point we have two options. The first option, which many companies use, is simply to burden the ERP system. That means using the same mechanism in the ERP system that's used to calculate the price at the line item level, and basically querying the ERP system for the price of a given product each time, right? So, with every customer visit, every time they browse the catalog, the ERP system is being queried for those prices, right? So, for this view, a request will be sent for 13 prices. The ERP system will return those 13 prices via the data bus or some kind of integration, and then those prices will be displayed. Of course, this solution works when, in reality, we have low traffic, right, on the website, and we potentially have a small number of SKUs, right? Because at this point, the ERP system, well, we won't overload it. However, when we actually become a company that actively operates on a B2B platform, then in reality, every customer visit, every page turn in the product catalog, every search, product view, or purchase will constantly generate requests to the ERP system. Of course, this can also be solved to some extent, right? Because I want to give you the full spectrum of options here. Those prices can simply be cached to some degree, right? However, the problem obviously arises from the fact that this cache can't last too long, because prices can change. And on the other hand, there also needs to be the possibility that, as part of the cooperation, the salesperson is able to adjust that price. So, this integration approach brings up performance-related issues. That is, we might overload the ERP system too much, and in reality, it won't return prices quickly. Or even just launching the B2B platform could cause the ERP system to start running very slowly, because these systems weren't actually designed for this kind of transactional load. They were made for entering orders on an ongoing basis. On the other hand, there can be solutions, and this is the approach we developed based on our own experiences with B2B platforms. This involves using a pricing and promotions engine. That is, we came to the conclusion that when it comes to effectively implementing a B2B platform, price management is an extremely important element. When we talk about price management, what we really mean is the concept of price lists. However, it's important to remember that a price list, on the one hand, if we're a manufacturer, results from a certain margin policy and our own production costs. If we're a distributor, an online store, or let's say a trading company, then in reality our sales price list also comes from the supplier's price lists and from a certain margin that we set for ourselves. And now, of course, we live in times where the competition for customers is much greater. As a result, there are industries where margins become very low, and sometimes even practically negative, with companies relying on bonuses to actually achieve a positive margin. So, in reality, the whole mechanism of price management becomes extremely important. And that's also because more and more companies are moving into so-called dynamic pricing, meaning that prices are calculated on the fly, based on the euro exchange rate, on competitors' prices that are collected online, and these prices are dynamically implemented. And now, coming back again to the assumption that an ERP system, in general, was not created to dynamically manage prices. Of course, there is always the pricing module, but it's simply a module that allows you to create prices. Some ERP systems also allow us to enter certain types of supplier price lists or some terms, or, of course, commercial terms. However, these are systems that were not really designed to dynamically manage prices. That's why, in reality, the very first element that really matters from the perspective of a B2B platform is the price list. But of course, we can also pull that price list from the ERP system. When we were designing the pricing and promotions engine, we really focused on effectively delivering the price that's available on the product page, as well as effectively providing promotions on the product page that are then visible later on. With that in mind, we told ourselves that we want to create an effective tool for managing prices, promotions, and in the future, also managing supplier price lists in order to efficiently recalculate prices. And now, when we log into our platform, we actually see a few objects that are important from the pricing perspective. First of all, there is the list of business partners, because in B2B platforms, unlike in B2C platforms where we talk about a single retail price list, we actually deal with price lists linked to a large number of business partners. On the other hand, we also have products around which these prices are actually calculated. And these are really the two basic objects that we need to have in the pricing and promotion engine. Since we are an application that manages prices, these objects like products or business partners are actually elements synchronized with your master data. And this master data can be an ERP system in the case of business partners, it can be a B2B platform for business partners, or it can also be a PIM system in the case of products, right? With every implementation of this type, and this is something you always have to remember, in a given organization you need to define what the master data is, that is, which platform actually stores the most important information. And another quite important element of this whole pricing and promotion engine is the base price list, and the base price list is the one we actually start from, that is, the sales price list. There are companies that have a single global price list for all their customers. There are companies that actually have price lists for each product category, and there are also companies that create individual price lists, right? So as you can see, there are a lot of possibilities and pricing options. We decided to make sure that our pricing and promotions engine can handle all the cases. Well, almost all the cases that we know of based on our history and experience in implementing B2B platforms. That's why we tried to create our tool as a fairly universal solution. So now, what exactly is this B2B price list? For us, the B2B price list is, first and foremost, really just a list of products available on a given platform, each with its base price, right? So that's basically the core information, what the net base price is. Secondly, we have the price list's validity date, because price lists also change over time. There are updates, for example, due to exchange rates or all sorts of other factors. And we also actually have pricing priorities. Why do we have these pricing priorities as well? Because again, we have situations where there are multiple price lists. There might be a main price list, and there could be some additional ones. Therefore, we also need to handle all kinds of priorities within the price lists. So now, a price list itself is really, a price list is always actually linked to some customer. So, if we go back to that product view, right? At the end of the day, when we have a list of products that we see in the price list, we display it from the perspective of a particular company, right? So, for example, here we have companies that we've gathered from somewhere on the internet. We actually display the company, this price list within the context of a given company, right? So we see how it is. These are actually categories of other products, how these product names appear at the end of the day, and at what price they are available. And notice that in this view, apart from the base prices that are there, some of these products have promotional prices, right? So these are the prices that actually give the customer a promotion on a given product. In the case of a platform, for example an e-commerce system, an ERP system, we don't have that option, right? Very few systems can generate a price list that takes into account all the promotions at a given moment, right? So, as you can see, when we have a very large number of promotions, and there are industries where there really are a lot of them, it's actually hard for us to determine what the real price list for the customer is at any given time. And that's exactly what we need, because this is the information that goes into the B2B platform system, since the customer simply browses through the products, and at the end of the day, they need to see their prices or their promotional prices, right? Of course, it's also important to note here that there's an assumption that these promotions are always available. So, we're not assuming something like, if the customer notices there's a promotion, they'll use it, and if they don't notice, then we just won't apply the promotion for them. Our approach in the B2B platform is that if there's a promotion on a product, the customer is informed about it, or going further, if for example a few products need to be selected together for the promotion to apply, we make sure to inform the customer about that, right? Because that's the point. These promotions are created to motivate the customer to make larger purchases at a given time, right? So, pay attention that you need to talk about the final price list in the context of a specific customer, because that customer's context determines the price list. But here's the important thing. We've only talked about one thing, On one hand, we have the price list. On the other hand, we have promotions, and only then do we get the final price. But then what we mentioned at the beginning comes up, right? So commercial rules come into play, which are actually extremely important from the system's perspective and from the perspective of calculating prices. And we've implemented these commercial rules in two ways. First, for a given client, we have a connection to commercial rules. And now again, there are companies that have global commercial rules. For example, here we're talking specifically about wine. In the case of wine, we can say that, for instance, the commercial condition, the commercial rule, is simply the restaurant, right? So, restaurants have certain specific commercial terms, or for example, I don't know, let's say pizzerias have special commercial terms. That's one scenario, which we also have covered. And the other situation is that, for example, we give this client, say, on certain product categories, like, I don't know, pipes and radiators, an additional 20% discount, right? So, there are also a lot of such situations. Therefore, in reality, for the contractor object, we have three main things. First, trade rules, which allow us to create a certain type of discount mechanism linked to a product or category. I'll show you that in a moment. Secondly, for the contractor, we have an assigned price list, right? Because there can be many price lists, we also need to assign a specific price list to each customer. And thirdly, there's also a situation that I would call, at the end of the day, atomic. That is, we agree with the client on a specific price, and that price is not affected by any promotions or any kind of additional discounts, or if they do have an effect, that's also something agreed upon with the client. So, in reality, for a given client, we can also set an additional special price for a specific product. And I want to emphasize that these are tools we want people working in sales departments to be able to use on a daily basis. So it's only this configuration, meaning the price list, commercial terms, and individual price, that actually allows us to bring the price to a promotional level, right? Which means that, at the end of the day, all of these are applied on top of everything else. And of course, here you can also ask yourself the question, a question that several companies have already asked us. Why, for example, not do it in such a way that promotions are handled in a B2B platform, while on the other hand, commercial terms, trading rules, and so on are in the ERP system or simply in the pricing and promotions engine? We see a lot of connections between promotions and commercial terms, right? The point is to avoid ending up with negative margins, simply giving too big a discount, or to really take into account whether, for a given individual price, that promotion should be applied or not. So we assume that every B2B platform works differently, every system operates differently, but when it comes to pricing, we need to be consistent so that we can, for example, report these prices and catch situations where margins might actually be negative, or create certain safeguards that prevent people from accidentally setting up promotions that actually go below cost. But we find out about this not after the fact, at the stage of sales margin reports, but simply before the promotion is even created. Because there are promotions that ultimately end up going public, and there's extensive advertising on paper, but in reality the actual price is very individual and sometimes appears by mistake or in error. Therefore, we look at all these elements of the entire system together. And now, listen, when we enter such a contractor and actually go into the trade rules, we can either copy the trade rules that are already prepared in the whole system. Here we have one global rule, so nothing else is displayed. Or we can create an individual trade rule for the client. And as I said, these trade rules can primarily be a discount on a category or on a product, right? So, for example, we can say that for this client, at the category level, we want them to have, let's say, an additional 10% discount on the radiators category, or on a specific product, for example, a 10% discount. And this discount can be either percentage-based, or a fixed amount, or a set price, right? So, percentage-based means we lower the price by 10%, amount-based means we lower it by 20 zlotys. A fixed price can simply be a set amount that always sets the price at that value, right? So let's say we apply a 5% discount. Also remember that commercial terms are prioritized, because we might have a situation where, for example, there's a discount on a category, and then a discount on a product. So on one hand, a given promotion or commercial terms can be combined with other discounts, or not. On the other hand, the order of promotions can also matter, right? So because of that, these priorities also need to be set. Of course, we also have status, we have validity, and above all, we have those essential rules that truly need to be fulfilled within these various categories, right? So, for example, if a category has a certain name, then at that moment the business rule will be executed. So, the base price list plus these commercial rules actually allow us to create truly individual commercial terms for the client, which, in reality, are most often the ones that apply in day-to-day sales. Not in promotional sales, but in regular, ongoing sales, where the client simply places orders on a regular basis, and those orders are governed by the commercial rules. Let me just remind you here that it can also be the case that we have an individual price, and we've decided to simply display these individual prices in the form of a product listing, because then individual clients can actually see those prices. And sometimes, unfortunately, it happens that a price appears on the B2B platform or on an order, and no one really knows where it comes from, so this element is also there to help manage those situations. That's also why we have the product browser, so we can see where certain prices come from, because it's also a tool for checking for certain types of errors that might occur, right? And really, this is the foundation for the pricing engine, meaning at this point we have fixed prices. Right now, we're already developing the next version of this application, which will include supplier price lists, and will allow importing supplier price lists from Excel, CSV files, or some API, as well as entering rules and principles based on which sales price lists will be generated, right? So, for example, we can say that if we're selling a product for 12 zlotys, we set a margin of, 50%, which means that theoretically we should buy this product for half that price. But of course, the euro exchange rate might change, or a new supplier price list might come in. And we need to get clear, up-to-date information, meaning we have to import the current supplier price lists and, with a set margin on the product, simply get a notification. Listen, these prices, the products in the sales price list have outdated prices. Do you want to change them, or do you decide that the margin will just be lower? And we'll be recording another episode about this as soon as the functionality is ready, specifically about managing supplier price lists in relation to the sales price list, what to pay attention to here, and how this process can be automated. Because remember, we at Macopedia also strive to automate your work and make things easier for you, so that digital commerce isn't just about switching the sales endpoint from a sales rep to a platform, but about providing a tool that makes the job easier for salespeople and for companies, right? So that the effort, which today is much more focused on acquiring customers, can simply be well utilized, instead of generating additional costs by having to hire more people. Another element of such a pricing and promotion engine is, as the name itself suggests, promotions, right? And these promotions are a more individual, or rather, let's say, more widely used solution, because these promotions can apply to both B2C and B2B customers. And commercial promotions are, on the one hand, a tool for achieving increased sales, right? But sometimes they are also a tool for clearance sales, for managing inventory, and they can also be a way to fulfill certain plans from suppliers, right? So, there are really many uses for promotions. However, as we all know, the whole world really likes promotions, and we ourselves like them too, so such a tool is a must-have. What really motivates us when it comes to promotions is making sure that a business partner on the B2B platform, whenever they're browsing products, can always see what types of promotions are available for a given product, what the options are, and we already have this functionality. And now, when you enter such a B2B platform, maybe let's start with the calendar. In reality, most trading companies operate according to some kind of calendar cycle that comes from promotions, right? The simplest calendar cycle you can imagine is just a store flyer. So we have a flyer, whether it's, from a discount chain like Biedronka, where we can see that for a certain period, say 2 weeks, some products have specific prices. But there are also companies that run ongoing promotions lasting several months or until further notice, and there are really many ways to do this. That's why, really, one of the first elements is the promotion calendar, which actually shows us what kinds of promotions are currently visible, right? Which ones are in effect, right? So this is basically the first element, where the person managing either e-commerce or pricing can simply see what the promotion calendar looks like at the moment, what's currently active, what's planned, and also get a view of the future. Where, for example, there are still some things that haven't been planned yet, right? So we can use the pricing and promotions engine as a planning and promotional tool as well, where we also use it for day-to-day work, which means we'll never have a situation where we develop promotions somewhere and then someone has to manually enter them into the system, right? We want this to be a fully comprehensive tool. So the first element is actually the calendar, which shows what promotions are available over time. And the second thing, of course, is the promotions themselves. And now, with promotions, as I mentioned to you earlier, these promotions are both catalog and cart-based, right? So these cover all kinds of cases, and we've tried to handle all of them here on this platform. Of course, there are probably even more of them, so in individual cases, we also adjust the pricing and promotion engine to the specific needs of our clients. So it's a solution that, if necessary, we can also adapt to a given client to some extent. Right? When we have promotions that are visible here on the list, we can actually see the most important information, meaning the status, the start date, the end date, and we can also see the priorities. Because again, with promotions, it can happen that there are priorities, meaning one promotion follows another. But on the other hand, there might also be a situation where, for example, we don't want a given promotion to take other promotional conditions into account. So there are a lot of these possibilities and cases. When we add a new promotion in our, well, actually, the client, we start with the name. So for example, I don't know, winter product catalog, right? That's the kind of name we can use, the name of the promotion. We also have the status, and we have the priority. And we also have that field I mentioned, which is the stop processing field. So this actually stops the execution of subsequent promotions. We have a start date and an end date. So basically, until which day the promotion is visible. For simplicity, and actually, this is how most companies operate, these promotions are carried out by days, not by hours. However, for individual cases, we are able to set up an hourly promotion, but that requires careful consideration of all integration and cache issues in the B2B platform, just to make sure there are no problems with price validity, right? And the next element is the type of promotion. Now, when it comes to promotions, we have, first of all, fixed percentage discounts, fixed amounts, percentage discounts, so catalog, cart-based, and we also have BOGO promotions, which are basically promotions with a freebie. So these also work, and we've handled those as well. I'll show you, for example, the simplest catalog promotion, which basically means that for certain specific products and certain particular customers, we set a very specific promotional rule, for example, a 5% discount. Because again, with promotions, it's not just about which products are included, but also which customers can truly benefit from the promotion, or even, going a significant step further, which product attribute, like its name, its code, or its price, is the essential element that actually shapes the entire promotion, right? Break time equals 0.5s/. So, for example, we can create a promotion for all green jeans, let's say, because we have St. Patrick's Day, for instance, so we might have a promotion for that occasion. So, for example, all green colored items are 10% off, right? These are the kinds of possibilities offered by pricing engines, which we actually implement, or, for example, promotions for all customers from a specific group, right? So, for instance, we have a customer who belongs to a particular group. Yes, we give them access to that promotion. So let's imagine that, for example, we're an electrical installation wholesaler and we want to run a promotion exclusively for installers. But, for instance, we don't want to offer that promotion to specialty stores that also source from us. As a result, these types of promotions are visible, and what's important from this perspective is that, at the end of the day, only customers assigned to those promotions will see them in the product catalog, right? So that's also really great, that we can have a tool for personalizing the B2B platform in terms of promotions, right? So, customers who visit this site won't see a promotion like, if you were an installer, you'd get this promotion. They'll only see the promotions that are relevant to them, right? So this is the simplest kind of promotion from the perspective of a discount, right? But for example, we have a promotion like 2 for 1. Natural wines. Such a promotion is also possible. So if we buy 2 wines, we get 2 wines for the price of 1. That kind of promotion is also possible. So this is a cart-based promotion, which means that the promotional element is an additional product, right? So here we have a cart-based BOGO, the price for the received product, because the product you get for free also has to have some price, right? Usually it's 1 gross or 1 zloty, or technically, the price of the main product is reduced by, say, 1 gross, and that gross is added to the free product, so that the product still has some specific value. And so, for a given product offering, the valued customer consequently gets an additional, complementary product. What's more, we also have certain inherent limitations that will prevent us, for example, from creating a promotional campaign that would apply to an excessively large number of products. Our pricing and promotions engine handles these kinds of things, for example. There could also be a situation where, for instance, we have a promotion called Warm Up Your Autumn Evenings. And this is, For example, a promotion that's a percentage-based catalog discount of 55%, which means that customers don't need to see the discounted price applied in the cart. They'll already see the crossed-out price at the product catalog level, right there. So this is also an excellent example of a price discount that appears for a very specific product, right? Here, we have a promotion rule where we take the particular product with the code W03, and for all those specific products, there's a significant 55% discount for all customers, right? As a direct result, these prices will actually be applied to those particular customers, thereby offering them a considerable saving. And as you can see for yourselves, when creating these kinds of elements today, at the end of the day we can look at the product catalog, where we see, for example, this wine was W0, actually, that was a different promotion, but this promotion has a 5% discount, and we can also see what it's based on. Here we see that it's a promotion for natural wine. For all kinds of products, we can see where these prices come from for the specific client we currently have selected here, or if we don't have one selected, as is the case here, we see the default settings, right? Because let's remember that very often on a B2B platform, many of our clients also handle retail at the same time, right? But retail, for example, usually operates on a different price list, on some kind of retail price list. So this is a client who isn't registered, wants to buy from us on the B2B platform, and we assume that's the case. So we also need to have a price list that isn't assigned to a specific client, right? Such a situation usually occurs in B2C. In B2B, we usually have an assigned client, because it's a client registered with a tax ID number. However, we need to have that option, which means that if necessary, we're ready to serve an individual customer. And now, in terms of the actual mechanics, the entire operation of the price list, why is this particular price list and all these commercial terms within the pricing and promotion engine so easily and readily adopted from the B2B platform? That's because, when we're navigating the B2B platform and we see these products, a request is sent via an API to the pricing and promotion engine. Basically, it's like, for this customer, please provide the price for this list of items, right? Break time equals 0.5s/. And then the B2B platform returns, sorry, not the B2B platform, but the pricing and promotion engine returns the appropriate prices for the specific products, while also providing information on whether there's a promotion or not. The entire pricing and promotion engine was built specifically to handle a very large number of requests and, basically, a lot of traffic, right? Because of that, it's architecturally designed as a service specifically to process prices very quickly. And we actually tested it with millions of customers and price lists, and in reality, this pricing and promotion engine responds efficiently. So, in fact, this entire solution is ready to handle a catalog of around 1 million products and really tens of thousands of customers, and we are able to use it on the fly without any problem. Because, as I said, from the very beginning we used all kinds of databases, and the entire engine architecture is designed specifically to return prices to the B2B platform extremely quickly. Right? So, in reality, the solution we've created is good both for clients who have a B2B platform and is easy to integrate. In fact, we have this integrated with the e-commerce platform that we implement, so our clients can really take advantage of it in a very easy way. On the other hand, it's also an API, so no matter what kind of B2B platform you have, or even an ERP system, you can use these prices in real time. Therefore, this integration is also quite easy to fully implement, and it really allows you to easily tap into the latest sales, simply because the customer browses the products themselves, makes purchases on their own, and also decides for themselves which promotion to take advantage of. As I mentioned, this is the first of 2 episodes about the pricing and promotion engine, because the second episode will be about supplier price lists. It will be released on YouTube very soon. However, if you're interested in the pricing and promotion engine in general, or if you'd like more detailed information, feel free to contact us, or if you have any questions, you can also leave a comment. We'll do our very best to thoroughly answer all of your inquiries and questions, so that if you happen to have any lingering doubts or uncertainties regarding this particular kind of valuable tool, you can certainly get all of those important questions comprehensively answered and clarified. And let me remind you, as you probably remember, that at Macopedia we create numerous podcasts as part of the B2B Masterclass series, where we've already talked about the topic of pricing many times in various episodes, since it's really a key issue. That's why we at Macopedia are also developing a pricing and promotions engine product to make it easier for our clients to implement these kinds of solutions. I want to thank you all very much for listening to today's episode. Definitely remember that it will be much more interesting on the YouTube platform because you can see a lot more, including screen recordings. But if you'd like to keep listening to us, I invite you to the Macopedia channel to watch both our videos and the B2B Masterclass podcast, and also to our Spotify channel, where you can hear many more interesting and enjoyable things from us. Thank you all very much, and see you in the next episode.